Hello, hello, you're watching Ngopi on Channel 10. I'm Natasha Hussain. Today we're delving into a topic that quite literally powers our daily lives, homes, this studio, and businesses that drive the Malaysian economy. Yup, I'm talking about electricity. Now, to unpack what goes on beyond the power lines is Peter Yong.
Hello.
And you're known online as Mr. Money TV.
Yep.
You're famous for your viral explainer videos that break down complex money matters. And one of your videos that I saw recently was on how you pay less for electricity. So what is your secret?
I definitely did not do anything illegal. What I did is I simply installed solar panels. So because recently there's a government incentive for that, so I installed it. And what happened is that when it generates electricity, it pushes it back into the grid. And any excess, I get the deduction on my own electricity bill because of that. So with that, I was able to pay much lesser in electricity bills.
And I think that for a lot of Malaysians, that's what they think about, paying less for their electricity bills with rising living costs and everything, right? But you're not really sure where that money goes to. Okay, so you pay your electricity bill, and where does that money go to? What does TNB do with that money?
Well, for TNB, in order to generate electricity, actually it's quite complex. For many people who actually don't know, they actually thought it probably just snap on a cable and then you just get electricity. Actually, there's a power plant, right? And there's the grid, there's the infrastructure, there's so many things. So what happens is that when you're paying for electricity, you're paying for the maintenance of all this, you're paying for a generation of electricity via coal and depend on where you are, a little bit of it is in the renewable side. Yeah, so what you're doing is that you're paying for the generation of it.
So interesting. So it doesn't exactly sound entirely profit-driven. It sounds like a lot of that revenue actually goes back into national development.
Yes. In fact, what many people do not know is that for TNB to operate, they're actually operating under a regulated business model, and it's called the Incentive-Based Regulation Framework. Now, what does it do is that it allows TNB to recover an efficient cost in generating electricity and then maintain a little bit of profit to run the company. And then with the extra profit, they're able to channel back into nation building, all sorts of different stuff like infrastructure building and a dividend to certain funds that's owned by government and so on.
Okay, when we're talking about dividends, how do we benefit exactly from these dividend payouts?
Yeah, so there are a few ways that you can do that. Number one, you can buy some TNB shares that will entitle you to some dividend. And based on their dividend policy, they pay out about 30% up to about 60% every year of their profit. But the main shareholders of TNB, because it being a national asset, it generally is the sovereign wealth funds of Malaysia. We are talking about people like Khazanah. We are talking about people who are like PNB, EPF, QAP, you know. So what happens is that when money goes into these funds, as we know, these funds will help to advance Malaysia. EPF pays our, retirement, right? And there's QAP, and we are talking about people like Khazanah as well. We're also involved in national development in terms of investing in startups and other Malaysian businesses.
And in this vein as well, so TNB obviously pays a lot of taxes, and that in turn goes back into public services and national development as well.
That's right. So you can say that if anyone outside there watching this right now, if they've gotten some sort of a grant, let's say from indirectly from one of those funds under Khazanah or QAP or whatnot, you actually got the money indirectly from the profit of TNB.
So let's take it a step back. For a lot of this, I think that the ordinary Malaysian would be like, okay, but how does this impact me? How does it help me directly?
Well, like I've mentioned earlier, first thing is you want to keep the power plants running. and that's the most direct, right? So think about it today. If you ever had a power outage, you're going to cry, right? So just by paying for the electricity bill, number one, it keeps your electricity going. And number two, like we mentioned, many of these dividend and so on, the profits they were made goes back into nation building. Yeah.
And, talking about low interruption rate earlier, you brought that up. And I think it's something that we Malaysians really, really take for granted. So one thing that was in the news recently was South Africa, after, I think, 10 months of uninterrupted power supply, has now started daily power cuts again. And these power cuts are hours at a time. At its height, it was going through 12 hours of power cuts daily. Now, that is insane for me to think about. Now, if you look at our statistics in comparison, like we have a very low system interruption rate. So I don't have to worry about my power going out during my Zoom meeting with my boss. And we're quite lucky in comparison to our neighboring countries as well.
Yep. Yeah. Having said that, to give you another perspective of it, right? Recently, my sister-in-law just moved to Myanmar and she has a long power outage time every day. So sometimes you couldn't reach her if her phone is not charged. Yeah, then you just can't reach her because there's no more electricity. She can't charge her phone. So you got to wait till the next day, right? Now, that's one. Now, number two also is this. Because of the stable electricity that we have, and we don't have these power outages that keeps happening, what happens is so it makes Malaysia a much better place for investments. So think about it recently, if you look at the news, right? There were many foreign investments that are coming in, like Amazon, data centers, Google, all these kind of things. They can only invest here if they are sure that our national power grid is strong and they won't get any power outage, because you're talking about data center, right? So it needs a consistent supply of power. Yeah. So in that way itself, it creates economy activities and Malaysians get employed, businesses around it can also thrive because there are more and more business coming in. So some way or another, whether directly, indirectly, yeah, that's how important it is for us to make sure that TNB can continue giving us good electricity.
So we really take it for granted, I think, the stability that we do have. And in turn, it gives us a stable country in terms of companies, other people wanting to invest.
Yep, that's right, yeah. Sometimes put it very simple, right? We can complain a lot as Malaysians, generally. But just try one day having a power outage. Yeah, then you will appreciate how important is it. Yeah, and generating electricity is not easy at all. Yeah, and making sure that it's being well maintained is not easy at all. If you can recall, based on, like, let's say when we were way younger, right? If you ever had a power outage, it takes quite long to get repaired. But today, you just need to dial 15454, if I can recall. Within an hour or two, you get back electricity. Yeah, so all this, it's all about efficiently providing electricity for Malaysians. And yeah, you just gotta appreciate that sometimes.
Yeah, and I also feel like this is something I want to bring up. Electricity has come a long way in Malaysia. You know, in 1949, the Central Electricity Board was established and it just powered a few areas. And to now, according to World Bank data, almost 100% of homes in Malaysia have electricity.
That's right.
That is an insane statistic, especially if you compare it to, we're talking about Myanmar earlier.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember your earlier question, you were asking, where did our profits go to? Yeah, that's part of it as well, because they're going to use that money, they're going to continue building more power grids, they're going to extend that reach to reach out to other homes that did not have electricity. And yeah, this is how it works.
And how is it diversified at the moment in terms of power supply in Malaysia?
Diversified by me?
As in, like, so you have power grids, you have coal, like how is it powered at the moment?
Currently, Malaysia's power generation is mainly still dependent on coal. Therefore, coal price can fluctuate. Yeah, and so if you look at the recent times with wars and everything, geopolitical tension, inflation, coal price has been increasing quite significantly. So because of that, time to time, they have to readjust the pricing model in order for them to be able to generate electricity much more efficiently without losing money.
Yeah. And I do feel like with rising living costs and everything, like the rate of what we're paying for electricity does remain quite stable. I mean, there are changes here and there, but it's not as in some other countries, you see massive spikes.
Yeah. Actually, many people do not know this. Yeah. Malaysia's electricity cost is actually one of the most affordable globally.
Wow.
Yeah. Why do you think all these data centers want to come here? It's for that reason, because our electricity cost is very affordable.
And how do they keep it that way?
Well, like we say, they actually have a business model that is regulated. There's this thing called ICPT. I won't go into the detailed explanation of it, but basically it's this whole complex structure to ensure that they can generate electricity at a cost-efficient manner, and they don't lose money. They can give Malaysians an affordable electricity supply but at the same time is able to generate profit for them to maintain and advance whatever agenda that there is, right? For those who do not know, there are profits it's because of this regulated model, it's a little bit of it is kind of capped, right? Any excess profits that are made will be channeled into this thing called the Kumpulan Wang Industri Elektrik. Yeah, that's managed by Suruhanjaya Tenaga.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is definitely not a business where they are going to go and say, oh, let's do whatever you can to maximize profit. Yeah.
So we Malaysians, we actually have one electricity service provider. And it's quite interesting because we look at different countries around the world and not every country has a system. Some it's completely privatized and there are like different companies vying for your for your money basically. What are the plus points of the system that we currently have in place where it's one service provider that's backed by the government?
Yeah, obviously there's pros and cons in both ways, but I would say that the plus point at this point is stability, right? Yeah, so what happens is that you can maintain that affordable pricing. Yeah, the prices are stable. And yeah, that's good for Malaysians, at least for now.
And we were talking about it earlier as well, like fewer power interruptions, things like that. You have like a standard across the board and accountability.
That's right, yeah.
What's a common false myth about TNB's earnings that you'd actually like to correct?
I think for the investment community, most people know quite a lot about how the whole pricing infrastructure work, how TNB works itself. But I think for most people, what they do not know is that they will think that if TNB makes more money, then that will change the tariff. But actually, these two are separate things. Yeah, the profit doesn't affect the tariff. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot today. And I think the audience learned a lot too. You really broke it down in layman's terms for us. What would be your takeaway that you want to impart to the audience?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for this particular section is learn to appreciate the things that we always have. Yeah, don't take it for granted. It is not that easy. Yeah, the whole electricity thing is essential today, but if you take it for granted, yeah, you will really feel it when you don't have it.
Wise words indeed. Well, thank you for joining us today on this channel. And yeah, it was really great talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And if you want more content like that, please like and subscribe to this channel, like this video, and you'll find more content like this on Channel 10.